Welcome back to Creating Dementia Solutions. Richard Pyatt here. This is a Miles for Memories program. You hear me say this, but repetition is key, right? Miles for Memories, Facebook, like button, then you'll know when these episodes come available. You might be with us on Access Vision, maybe YouTube, or hearing us as a podcast. We're everywhere, but we're glad you found us. And we focused this year on the Lancet Commission list of factors that can potentially mitigate our risk for dementia. Here we are toward the end of the year, and we're kind of, saying, wow, there were a lot of discussions on that list that had to do with a number of things. Having your vision checked, having your hearing checked, addressing diabetes. We just talked about smoking and vaping. All of these things, addressing all of these things has been important, and potentially not just for the notion of reducing risk for dementia. So we've had some really broader conversations than maybe we've had in prior years. Sherry Sherman's back with us now, founder of Miles for Memories, to sort of look back on this and look ahead in the future. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, thanks for having me, Richard.
Well, thank you. This was your eagle eye that when we talked about what we would do this year on the program that brought this up, the Lancet list, which clearly says, here are a bunch of factors we believe could reduce your risk. And this is some of the things you get asked. I know it comes up with me, but you definitely get asked. How do we address our risk for dementia? Movement, programming, research, of course. But this list is tremendous, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. The Lancet list started several years ago, and when we first started, there were far fewer things on this particular list.
Yeah.
And we have a variety of different experts that get together periodically to re-examine it, where it was, where it's going, what's working, what's not. In mid 2024, these 24 experts got together and expanded the list. So we now have 17 identifiable things that we can do to reduce our risk for dementia almost by 50%, which is huge.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And we don't spend enough time suggesting that we have some level of control over the directions that things may take. And it doesn't matter if you're now 75. There are still things you can do at age 75, certainly things you could do when you were in high school, but there is an impact no matter where you are, whether it's preventing it or maybe even slowing progression. Mm-hmm. So starting where you are is valuable.
And a number of the things we talked about, as I started to say a moment ago, have other potential health benefits. Not just this, but this is tremendous. I think people, and you know this better than I do, I think people want to know, is there a cure for dementia, Alzheimer's, et cetera? And we zero in on that.
Yeah.
And that was another conversation we had this year. With Dr. Atkin, for example, because he gets asked this all the time.
Right.
And he even said, really, it's about what we're doing on the prevention side that has more impact. This is it.
Yeah.
This is the list.
Prevention is today. A cure could be sometime out in the future. So prevention is closer than a cure. Mm-hmm. Let's just be honest. Not that we should ever stop looking, but if we can keep it from happening, how much better is that?
Yeah.
Right? Both are good. You need to have both sides of that coin as you get ready to go forward. But as you mentioned earlier, many of those things that we can have an impact on also impact other chronic conditions. And we have tried to really focus on some of those throughout this year and to recognize that if you are experiencing some chronic condition that in some way, shape, or form impacts the way that the blood flows through your system or your brain is oxygenated and so on and so forth, it matters.
Yeah. Well, it was a terrific focus to have this year. Yeah. And if you haven't heard all of those episodes, by all means, go back and listen to some of these discussions that we've had with various people about how this list and these factors are part of that whole prevention discussion and action that you can focus on. So as you, how many years since you founded?
12.
12 years. Yeah. So as you think about this year and generally the progress over 12 years, what stands out to you?
You know, Miles for Memories is a grassroots organization of a host of volunteers. You know, we have regularly about 35 volunteers that help to build the programs, who bring ideas forward and suggest that maybe this could be a good way of reaching out to the community. How do we impact the community in a new way? Where are we at? So today is what gets served. What do we need today? And so that group of individuals we call our leadership team. We do get together monthly to look at the different programs that we do. Almost every one of them is intended to include movement in some way. Some of them cannot, but we do try to incorporate that in everything we do, because movement is one of those things that matters. Keeping your brain active is one of those things that matters. Socialization is one of those things that matters. And none of those are necessarily the result of caring for another chronic condition such as diabetes or stroke, and so on and so forth. So those all collectively make a difference. And so we have tried to look at making sure that the things we do aren't duplicates of something that another agency might be doing. That is not our goal. If it exists and it's already working, we will encourage folks to go there. So as an example, there are programs that Senior Health Partners has, there's programs that Care Well Services has, that we want to engage them with in that program. We don't have to create it if it's already there, but what's missing? And how can we fill in the gaps to help reach that point? So the caregiver became very much an important part of what we have done over the years, and it will be becoming just as important in the upcoming year, 2026, in terms of how do we help caregivers put together a plan of action for themselves.
Yeah, as we speak, you just had a caregiver event. And I imagine there's some things that stood out to you from that, but this is an example.
Yes.
In fact, our 2024 focus was for caregivers, so if you haven't heard that, it's more for you to listen to. But generally speaking, this is a big component of these things that you talked about, which maybe we're not doing enough, or we could do more and nobody else is doing. We're going to step on somebody else's programs.
Right.
And it had to do with that. Now we're talking about the people who help the people who need it.
So in addition to putting that together, one of the other things that we're currently looking at is a mentor-to-mentor program, whereby we have someone who's been a caregiver for a long period of time and has kind of learned how to work through those bumps. Versus someone who's just brand new, they've just gotten a diagnosis for a loved one and they feel lost. And beginning to develop those relationships as well, to have a new friend built in with all these great experiences and suggestions and ideas for the simplest of things that in the moment seem overwhelming.
Well, there's some kind of power, right, in being able to engage with someone who understands what you're going through.
Right. And it's not meant to replace support groups in general, because this is a one-on-one versus a group of folks that can come together and expand. And we would still encourage them to participate in a support group and get that kind of feeding at the same time. So there's a significant difference between the two, and yet a great value for each of them.
Yeah.
And we have learned this when we started the caregiver focus in 2024, what kinds of things they needed. What are you asking for? How do we help you help your loved one, but also yourself, right? Because we want you to be able to continue to care for them rather than you getting lost in the caregiving role. So that became really, really important. And the caregiver retreat was just simply rewarding. I think is a really great word. And to have these caregivers that had a moment to step away, and in that stepping away, got to learn, got to experience the music program, got to experience massage, got to experience crafts, got to experience a spiritual labyrinth walk, and other types of movement, and gather additional information from other community providers. They walked away feeling informed and enriched, and really their cup was refilled. That's the whole point. That was some of the continuous points I think we made in having those caregiver support discussions, was the importance of being able to catch your breath and disengage for a moment or two, and not be worried about
what your loved one is going through when you're not there. And this is part of that filling the cup thing.
Yeah, it really is.
Important.
And then we take some of those other things that we have, resources that are already available to help with that peace of mind. So the different technology pieces and making sure that the caregiver has the ones that are right for them. We shared with them the new caregiver keychain for them to be able to take home and put on their keychain, because it matters that if something happens to them, law enforcement, emergency responders will know that they have a loved one at home they're caring for. And so just using those things that we have now found to be effective along the way as one more tool. Not every tool is for every person, but at least they're tools that might be valuable to them.
Well, we've had several conversations about the technology, but I'll say it again, the impact of that is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine someone wanders and the original path they might have been on was a long stretch emergency room, police involvement, EMTs trying to find the caregiver. This is a whole long thing. Whereas wearing that technology can help return them home faster, and maybe without the intervention of the authorities.
Right.
What a difference that makes.
Oh, it's huge.
Let's talk about next year.
Okay.
So as you look on to 2026, what do you see coming down the pike for us here?
Well, many of the things that we already do will continue.
Yeah.
Right? So the technology programs, the research update will still come again in the spring. We had an event at the Y Center. We'll do that again in the spring, just to reintroduce movement to a new group of individuals that enjoy movement regularly. And how can this still impact them? We'll have, our community stroll later in the year as well. The caregiver retreat again as we go forward. Each of these different events allow us then to have supplies, as an example, to create our patrol car kits. So we have patrol car kits in more than 120 vehicles now. And so a law enforcement personnel who's responding can be able to give them that first set of supplies for making some decisions and choices. And then they just reach back out and say, now we need an update, and off we go. So we'll continue with that particular program. The expansion of those caregiver services to specifically the caregiver and program development and the mentoring program, that will be a brand new piece as we get ready to go forward in that. And, as we expand, we also expand the number of individuals who want to be part of the process, right? How can I help you? How can I volunteer? How can I engage? And we try to work very diligently towards having, different folks kind of lead each of the different pieces, because otherwise that can be very overwhelming for one person.
Clearly, yeah.
Right? And it has been phenomenal and amazing in terms of what we look at, where we look at it, why we look at it. Has it worked? Has it been successful? Do I need to pivot? And so it seems as if that's been great. Another great program, which I anticipate will expand next year, is the respite program and the emergency respite that is available if emergencies do happen. And I think as more and more caregivers also carry and use the keychain on their devices, that law enforcement will be quicker to reach out to us to make sure that their loved one has been found and now is in a safe, secure place until we can make further arrangements. And all of that is important. Our music program launched, and so the music program will expand into a couple of different directions in 2026 as well.
Well, congratulations on all of that. Where do all these ideas come from?
Yeah.
When you start listing all these things, there's some kind of think tank that goes on. You all put your heads together and you say, here's what we need. Here's the list. And then off you go.
Yeah.
And they become a reality. But you have to constantly be monitoring what the needs are, do you not?
You do. If you listen and you pay attention, whether it's at an event or whether you're interacting with a caregiver or whether you're acting with a person who's directly impacted by, let's say, vascular dementia, as you listen to the things that they say, what they're missing, what would help them, then you bring it back to the group and say, okay, this is what's been presented. How can we make that happen? Mm-hmm. How can we find the yes, which was really on someone that came from an earlier program where I was chatting. And if there's a way, we'll make it happen.
That's the spirit, isn't it? You know, I should ask before we go, there's a lot of chatter about difficult financial times and all of these things.
Yeah.
How do you maintain your funding, and does this create some anxiety for you?
Well, I suppose it should create some anxiety, but we're all volunteers, so we don't have to pay any staff.
Yeah.
There are little things that we have to pay for, obviously, as we like print materials and make things available, develop programs. So those things do need to be paid for, but frankly, most folks are exceptionally generous with their time, their talents, their gifts. If you haven't been impacted by somebody who is living with dementia yet, you likely will.
Yeah.
You got a 50-50 shot. And if we can, however, help folks to recognize that we do have some role in the prevention process, maybe we can have an impact on lowering those numbers. Mm-hmm. You know, not enough of us talk about prevention. We've spent a lot of time talking about a cure, but let's also talk about what you can do at home now on your very own. And people are listening a little bit more, especially if they're now dealing with a parent or a brother, a sister, a friend, someone who came back with a traumatic brain injury and now we're dealing with other things. And they start to look at, is this my future? And the answer is it doesn't have to be. Even if there's some genetic testing that's already been done that says that you have the ApoE4 gene, and at least your choices today, lifestyle choices, can make a difference, and that does not have to be in your future.
Well, there's no better place to leave it, I suppose. With that thought,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be this way.
doesn't.
And the other thought that you mentioned, which is, if you don't know someone who's living with dementia, you probably will. That's the significance
Yeah.
of what we're talking about.
Right?
And thus underscores everything you're doing.
Yeah. It's
Well,
heartfelt.
Thanks to you and all the volunteers at Miles for Memories.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, there you are. Creating Dementia Solutions is here. And again, we invite you to look back on all those episodes, which actually address a number of the things Sherry talked about just now. And that could be on YouTube, that could be here on Access Vision, that could be as a podcast. So, Miles for Memories on Facebook, click the like there. Click through to the Miles for Memories website too and have a look at some of this technology that we've talked about as well. I'm Richard Pyatt. Happy holidays and take care.